So today I'm going to be teaching I'm in Your Hands. We're going to be studying this book by Rav Shalom Arush. So we are in part two. Um, Sometimes many of us, oftentimes we would say that we have bitachon. However, we always look at our plan A, our plan B, and our plan B is that we think, okay, if this doesn't work out, if it doesn't work with me trusting Hashem or in this situation, then I've got another option just in case. I have a backup plan. And that's the problem. We shouldn't not think this way at all. We should not try to help Hashem figure things out. It's a big misconception when we're trying to help Hashem. We have to leave it and trust that things can be left in his hands to handle, right? Without our intervention. And so it tells us twice in this book, in the book of Yirmiyahu, is saying that, basically making it very clear that there is no plan B. Hashem is supposed to be your plan A and also your plan B. There should not be any other source of help and no other plan. And so you should not put your hopes into anybody else or anything else. Because once again, if you do, then now you're putting your faith into that person. And God will say, you know what? You want to put your faith into that person? Well, then in that case, I'm going to leave it to that person to decide your faith. And that's not a situation or a place you ever want to be. And when you have to tell yourself that whenever I place my bitachon in Hashem, whenever I put my trust in Hashem, I don't need to tell him what to do. God knows what to do. And God will work things out in a wondrous way, in a way that he never dreamt of. There's, a point where Hashem is very meticulous in his words within his actions with the tzaddikim. He's mentioning here Avarush that he's refining it with a fine comb, because the actions of tzaddikim are looked at very differently. Because he expects them to have complete bitachon, right? For example, Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef was a very righteous man. He was put through very big challenges, and this was purifying him. This was elevating him. And even him, who was such a righteous person, had such challenges. That's because Hashem had higher standards for him. Sometimes we wonder, why is Hashem putting such a level of it, such a test with me and not with someone else? Well, that's because you're at a higher level. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't make sense if we all had the same challenge, right? And so after he was in prison for 10 years, Yosef had an opportunity to save himself. And this was with the king's wine server that was being released at the time. And he goes ahead and he puts in very minimal effort. He asks, the king's wine server, he says, just mention my name. Let him know that there's an innocent man in jail that's been imprisoned here for 10 years. And the fact that he used those two words, remember me and mention me, Hashem went ahead and punished him and put him in jail, extended his sentence for another 2 years. This is once again, someone placing their hope and reliance on someone other than Hashem. And it's a lack of bitachon. So we can learn from Yosef HaTzadik that if Yosef HaTzadik, who's such a big tzaddik, didn't get it right in this instance, the situation, that we should learn to even more so do the same. And we see the importance of placing bitachon Hashem and only Hashem, like we said. And it's written that in the Chovot HaLevavot, when you do that, and when you place your bitachon in someone other than Hashem, then Hashem places him in the hands of the one whom he relied on. Like I said, we should avoid having our reliance on a human being, because you never want God to remove himself from the picture, okay, by you relying on someone else other than Hashem, because that can lead, unfortunately, to suffering. So in this chapter, we talk about how a lack of bitachon can be dangerous. Let's better understand that. We had our forefather Abraham, who went down to Egypt. He was searching for food, and when he was entering Egypt, he chose to hide his wife Sarah in a box. He feared that they might be overwhelmed by her beauty, they might take her. But the Rambam says usually you would think that he did the right thing. He hid his wife. He didn't want her to get taken by the Egyptians. But it was actually the wrong thing to do. According to the Rambam, and this is the Rambam that's saying this, is that Abraham took these matters into his own hands. And he hid her, and he was punished for this. And Sarah was taken from him. It's very hard to believe that something like this would be written by the Rambam. That we would think that, he went ahead and did what any human being would do and just hide their wife in such a situation, not to get caught, right? But God is saying here, no. You didn't trust that I got you. I'm taking care of you and I'm going to protect you. The Rambam says that Abraham should have placed his bitachon Hashem, and Hashem would have had the power to save him. But then he decided not to. Decided to take the decision to put the matters in his own hands. Right. He also took the decision to go down to Egypt to find food. Even that was a reflection of lack of bitachon, because from what we're explaining here, and this is, I think, very, very deep, is that Hashem has the power to sustain a person even during famine. They're not going to let them starve. And so the Rambam is concluding that because of Avraham's lack of bitachon, Hashem decreed that as a result, his descendants will be exiled and they're going to be enslaved by Paro, which is pretty harsh. So we're made very clear from this that we should never be placing our bitachon on anyone other than Hashem, because that could be dangerous. And so if we want to be free from all suffering and pain, we have to strengthen ourselves with this bitachon, have the power to remove all the suffering and pain. The idea is, don't help Hashem. You should have bitachon at all times, and you shouldn't rely on your intellect. The Vilna Gaon talks about this. He says, have bitachon in Hashem alone. Don't bring your mind into the equation at all. The moment that your brain starts to process what's going on and try to justify every situation, then you're doing exactly the opposite. Sometimes we want to feel safe, so we say we trust Hashem, but really deep down inside, we still think we have control over the outcome. We think, oh, we got this. We're good enough. We're better. And so Hashem is saying, cast your burden on him completely if you want to have complete salvation. Now, one example that I read in a book by Rabbi Sutton was Daily Dose of Bitachon. He was telling a story about a situation where this can be compared to somebody who goes to the airport. Somebody goes to the airport, how do you usually do it? The normal thing is to drag your luggage from your car directly to the counter. Now, imagine you see a guy carrying his luggage on his shoulder, and he's got wheels, he's got a handle, but he's carrying it on his shoulder. You'd be wondering, what's going on here? Why is he doing this? What's the point of that? And that's what we do sometimes. We take the burdens and we put them on our shoulder and we carry those burdens, when instead what we should be doing is we should be rolling our problems and casting the burden onto Hashem and saying, hey, help me out here. We have to bring the situation to Hashem and not carry it on our shoulders. Thank you very much. Have yourself a wonderful day.